Back to Chase Bank, where we left off.
21.9% combined. Bank of America, 22.7% combined. Citigroup, 20.8% combined. Wells Fargo, 18.9% combined. The four largest banks in America are all controlled by the same three shareholders. They don't compete on interest rates. They match each other because they're not independent companies. They're divisions of the same ownership structure. In food, Coca-Cola, 19.7% combined. PepsiCo, 20.4% combined. Nestle, 15.8% combined. Unilever, 17.2% combined. Mondelez, 18.9% combined. The big three own Coke and Pepsi, the two companies that supposedly compete, except they don't. They divide markets, they coordinate pricing, and their shareholders are identical. This is not competition. This is a cartel with ownership consolidation instead of explicit agreements. In media, Disney, 19.2% combined. Comcast, 21.4% combined. Warner Bros. Discovery, 16% combined. Paramount, 15.3% combined. Netflix, 18.7% combined. Every major media company, every studio, every streaming service, all owned by the big three. You're not choosing between Disney and Netflix. You're choosing between two options owned by the same shareholders. This pattern repeats across every industry: automotive, retail, defense, insurance, telecommunications. In every sector, the big three are the top three shareholders in every major company, and they own both sides of every supposed competition. Now, let me show you why this matters to you personally, why you cannot avoid making the big three richer every single day. You wake up, your iPhone is made by Apple, big three own 22.4%. Your Android is made by Google, big three own 20.1%. Your computer runs Microsoft, big three own 20.5%. There's no device you can use that doesn't enrich the big three. You eat breakfast. Your cereal is made by Kellogg's or General Mills. Big three are top shareholders in both. Your coffee is Nestle or Starbucks. Big three own both. Your orange juice is Coca-Cola or PepsiCo. Big three own both. Every option you have for breakfast enriches the same three companies. You drive to work. Your gasoline comes from Exxon, Chevron, Shell, or BP. The big three are the largest shareholders in all four. Your car is Ford, GM, Tesla, or Toyota. The big three are top shareholders in all four. You cannot drive without making them richer. You take medicine: Pfizer, Moderna, J&J, Merck, or AstraZeneca. The big three own all five: generic or brand name, over-the-counter or prescription. All of it flows through companies they control. You watch TV, Disney, Netflix, Comcast, Paramount, all owned by the big three. You scroll social media. Meta owns Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. The big three own 17.2% of Meta. You search Google. The big three own 20.1%. You shop Amazon. The big three own 18.7%. You bank. JP Morgan, Bank of America, Citi, Wells Fargo, all owned by the big three. Your credit card is Visa or MasterCard. The big three are the largest shareholders in both. Your mortgage, your car loan, your credit card debt, all serviced by institutions the big three control. You invest for retirement. Your 401k is probably a Vanguard or BlackRock fund. You're literally giving them your retirement savings to manage. And they use your money to buy more shares of the companies they already control. You're funding your own exploitation. Every transaction you make, every product you buy, every service you use, it flows through companies controlled by BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. You cannot escape them. The system is designed so that every choice leads back to them. The average American spends $4,000 per year on gasoline. Big three owns
Bunch of cowards.
$3,500 per year on groceries. Big three own the
Republicans.
food
A
companies.
bunch of cowards.
$2,800 per year on tech products. Big three own Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google. $1,200 per year on streaming services. Big three own Disney, Netflix, Comcast. $5,000 per year on healthcare beyond insurance. Big three own the pharma companies. That's $1,600 per year flowing to companies the big three control. Over a lifetime, that's $825,000 transferred from you to the companies they own. And that's just personal spending. It doesn't include the corporate spending your employer does, the government contracts that go to these companies, or the financial fees that get extracted along the way. You are a tributary to flowing wealth to the big three. You have no choice because they own all the options. So how did we get here? How did three companies come to control 90% of the market? The answer is, this is exactly what Rockefeller designed. Just evolved over 150 years. In 1870, Rockefeller controlled 4% of oil refining. By 1880, 90%. He did it through vertical integration, controlling the supply chain, and horizontal consolidation, buying all competitors. In 1882, he created the Standard Oil Trust, one entity controlling 41 companies. first modern holding company structure. In 1911, the Supreme Court broke up Standard Oil into 34 companies. This was supposed to restore competition, but it didn't. First, Rockefeller owned shares in all 34 companies. The breakup made him richer. Second, 34 companies eventually reconsolidated: Exxon, Chevron, BP. These are Standard Oil's descendants. But more importantly, Rockefeller's methods spread. Every industry adopted his playbook: steel, railroads, telephones, automobiles. By the 1950s, every major industry was an oligopoly with 3 to 5 dominant companies. This was Rockefeller's consolidation replicated across the economy. Then came the next evolution: institutional investors. In the 1970s, pension funds and mutual funds became massive. Instead of individuals owning stocks, institutions owned them. And a handful of institutions controlled most of the shares. BlackRock was founded in 1988. Vanguard already existed since 1975. State Street had been around since 1792, but started its asset management division in the 1970s. These 3 companies grew by offering low-cost index funds. They told investors, don't try to pick stocks, just buy the whole market. We'll charge you 0.03% to manage it. This sounds great. Low fees, broad diversification. But here's what it actually did. It concentrated ownership. When everyone buys index funds, they're all buying the same thing, the S&P 500. And the S&P 500 is managed by the big 3. So instead of millions of individual investors each owning different stocks, you have 3 institutions owning the same stocks on behalf of millions of investors. The consolidation that Rockefeller achieved in oil, the big 3 achieved in everything. Not by owning companies directly, by managing the savings of everyone else and using that money to control the companies. By 2000, the big 3 managed $5 trillion combined. By 2010, $10 trillion. By 2020, $20 trillion. The growth wasn't organic, it was structural. Retirement savings flowed from individuals to institutions. 401ks replaced pensions. Index funds replaced stock picking. And every dollar went to BlackRock, Vanguard, or State Street. Today, 80% of S&P 500 shares are owned by institutions. And the big 3 are the largest institutional owners. This means 80% of the market is controlled by institutions. And the big 3 control the institutions. Rockefeller controlled 90% of one industry. The big 3 control 90% of all industries by controlling the institutions that own the industries. It's Rockefeller's consolidation cubed. So why does the government break them up? Why doesn't the FTC, the DOJ, the SEC stop this? 3 reasons. First, the big 3 don't technically violate antitrust law. Antitrust law was designed to break up companies that own assets. Standard Oil owned refineries. AT&T owned phone lines. Microsoft owned software. These are tangible assets that can be divested. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street don't own the companies. They manage shares on behalf of clients. Legally, they're not the owners. The pension funds, mutual funds, and individual investors are the owners. The big 3 are just the managers, so antitrust law doesn't apply the same way. Second, breaking up the big 3 would destroy the retirement savings of millions of Americans. Your 401k is probably a Vanguard or BlackRock fund. If the government forced Vanguard to divest its holdings, your retirement account would collapse. Politically, that's impossible. No politician will vote to destroy voters' 401ks. Third, the big 3 are embedded in government. BlackRock's Aladdin risk management system is used by the Federal Reserve. The Fed uses BlackRock's software to assess risk in the banking system. BlackRock advised the Fed during the 2008 crisis and the 2020 COVID crisis. Larry Fink is consulted by presidents, treasury secretaries, and central bankers. State Street has been around for 232 years. They financed every major American industrial expansion. They're embedded in the Treasury, the Fed, and every financial
We know
regulatory
who's
body.
robbing us.
Vanguard's ownership structure makes it.
We know who's robbing us. These 3 fucking companies robbing us.
Vanguard
Take all their accesses.
The big 3 are too big to regulate. They're too embedded to challenge, and they're too important to the retirement system to break up. They've achieved the perfect monopoly: invisible, legal, and essential. And it's getting worse. The big 3 are growing faster than the economy. Every year, more money flows from individuals into index funds. More pension funds allocate to passive strategies. More wealth concentrates in the big 3. By 2030, projections show the big 3 will manage over $30 trillion combined. That's 40% of global financial assets. By 2040, potentially $50 trillion. At that point, they won't just be the largest shareholders in 90% of companies, they'll be the controlling shareholders. Right now, they're the largest shareholders but rarely have majority control. A 20% stake is influence, not control. But as their ownership grows, 20% becomes 30%, then 40%. Eventually, the big 3 will hold majority stakes in those companies. At that point, they're not just influential shareholders, they're the owners. This is the end game. Rockefeller tried to own 90% of oil and failed when Standard Oil was broken up. The big three are succeeding, but Rockefeller failed.
Hey, I've been looking around the car wash.
Everything. Not through one company. Through three companies that own each other. So they're doing it legally with public support because everyone thinks index funds are good for retirement, index funds are good for returns, but they're consolidating ownership of the entire economy into three unaccountable institutions. This is the greatest wealth transfer in history, from distributed individual ownership to concentrated institutional control. And it's invisible to almost everyone. Here's the reality. You do not live in a free market, you live in a managed market, managed by three companies that control $20 trillion and growing. You do not have a meaningful choice. You have the illusion of choice. Coke or Pepsi, Apple or Google, Exxon or Chevron. Every option is controlled by the same shareholders. You cannot escape the system. Every dollar you spend, every stock you own, every transaction you make, it flows through companies the big three control. You are not a consumer in a competitive market. You are a tributary in an extraction system. And the extraction flows upward to the largest shareholders of everything, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. This is not conspiracy. This is structure. This is documented in SEC filings, shareholder reports, and public records. The big three are the top three shareholders in 90% of S&P 500 companies. They vote as a block on corporate governance. They coordinate policies through Larry Fink's annual letters. They own each other in a closed loop that prevents regulatory intervention. John D. Rockefeller built Standard Oil to control 90% of American oil. It took him 40 years.
A closed loop.
After 28 years. The big three built a system to control 90% of all American industry. It took them 50 years. And it's accelerating, not breaking up. Rockefeller's system was visible. He owned refineries. He owned railroads. He owned distribution networks. You could see Standard Oil. You could point to it. You could regulate it. You could break it up. The big three system is invisible. They don't own the companies. They manage shares. They don't control industries directly. They vote as shareholders. You can't see them. You can't point to them. You can't regulate them the same way. And you definitely can't break them up without destroying the retirement savings of 100 million Americans. This is monopoly perfected, invisible, legal, essential, and absolutely unavoidable. Three companies, $20 trillion, 90% of everything, and you cannot escape them. You work to earn money. You spend that money on products. Those products are made by companies the big three control. The profits flow to those companies. The dividends flow to the big three. They use those dividends to buy more shares. The cycle continues. Wealth concentrates. You work. They accumulate. This is the system. You cannot escape it. You can only see it. And now you see it. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. Three companies that own everything. $20 trillion in assets and growing. The top three shareholders in 90% of major American corporations. Controlled through cross-ownership that makes them unbreakable. Used to coordinate policy across every industry and growing faster than the economy itself. This is the evolution of Rockefeller's Standard Oil Trust. Not broken up, perfected, expanded, made invisible, and made permanent. Welcome to the monopoly you cannot escape.